Space exploration during the space race period, during 1957 to 1975. The space race spanning, roughly from 1957 to 1975, was a defining chapter in human history, not only for its technological breakthroughs, but also for its intense geopolitical competition between two superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union. Against the backdrop of the Cold War, this era transformed space exploration from a mostly theoretical or experimental endeavor into a dramatic display of technological prowess that captivated the entire world. Its origins and context: Cold War rivalry and the dawn of the space age. Following World War II, tensions between the US and USSR hardened into the Cold War. Defined by ideological conflict and competition for global influence, scientific and military superiority became key battlegrounds. Rockets, initially developed as weapons in World War II, emerged as potential vehicles for delivering nuclear warheads, as well as instruments for peaceful exploration. The launch of Sputnik 1 by the Soviet Union on October 4, 1957, shocked the American public and government. Sputnik was the world's first artificial satellite, an aluminum sphere roughly 58 centimeters in diameter, orbiting Earth every 96 minutes and emitting radio pulses detectable worldwide. The surprise success of Sputnik demonstrated Soviet rocket technology could place objects into orbit and raised fears about missile capabilities, resulting in what became known as the Sputnik crisis. This event not only jolted U.S. defense and science policy, but also ignited the formal space race. Soviet early lead. Firsts in space exploration. The Soviet Union capitalized swiftly on its early lead, striking a series of dramatic firsts in spaceflight. Sputnik 2 in November 1957 carried Laika, the first living animal to orbit Earth, though she died during the mission. This signaled the Soviets' rapid capability to send life into orbit. On April 12, 1961, Yuri Gagarin became the first human in space aboard Vostok 1, orbiting the Earth once and returning safely. His flight was as much a triumph of human courage as an achievement of engineering. In 1963, Valentina Tereshkova became the first woman in space, demonstrating the USSR's commitment to showcasing broader accomplishments. The Soviets also perfected the first extravehicular activity, spacewalk with Alexei Leonov in 1965, proving astronaut mobility outside spacecraft viability. Several unmanned spacecraft also achieved firsts: robotic lunar probes, Lunaseries, Venus landers, Venera, and interplanetary flybys, cementing the USSR's broad focus on space exploration. U.S. response: building momentum and the moon goal. Reacting to Soviet momentum, the United States increased investment in space exploration. The creation of the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA in 1958, consolidated civilian space efforts. Early achievements included the launch of Explorer 1 in January 1958, America's first satellite, which led to the discovery of the Van Allen radiation belts. The American human spaceflight program developed rapidly. Alan Shepard's suborbital flight in 1961 made the U.S. second to send a human to space. John Glenn's orbital flight aboard Mercury Atlas 6 in 1962 marked the first American to orbit Earth. NASA's Gemini program during 1965 to 66 developed essential technologies and techniques such as rendezvous, docking, and extended spaceflight that became crucial to the upcoming Apollo missions. The most defining moment was President John F. Kennedy's 1961 speech setting a bold national goal, landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to Earth before this decade is out. This ambitious target galvanized NASA and the nation, the Apollo program, and lunar landings. The Apollo program was an enormous technical and logistical undertaking involving thousands of scientists, engineers, and astronauts. After overcoming initial tragedies, most notably the Apollo 1 fire in 1967 that killed 3 astronauts, NASA progressed toward Kennedy's vision. Apollo 8 in 1968 marked the first crewed orbit of the moon. On July 20, 1969, Apollo 11 successfully landed astronauts Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin on the moon, while Michael Collins orbited above, a breathtaking moment linking technology, human will, and exploration. This was followed by subsequent moon landings. Apollo 12, 14, 15, 16, and 17, scientific exploration of the lunar surface, and return of moon rocks. The Apollo missions provided invaluable scientific data, expanded human experience in space, and delivered powerful propaganda victories for the US, Soviet challenges, and shift in focus. Despite early successes, the Soviet crewed lunar program faced substantial technical difficulties, particularly with their large N-1 rocket, which never successfully launched. The USSR ultimately failed to send cosmonauts to the moon and instead pivoted toward long-duration crewed spaceflight and space stations with missions such as the Salyut and Mir programs. Technological and scientific advances. The space race accelerated multiple disciplines. Improvements in rocket propulsion and spacecraft life support. Advancements in computers and telecommunications. Development of extravehicular activity suits and space rendezvous techniques. Expansion of space science through robotic probes to the Moon, Mars, Venus, and the outer solar system. Cultural and political impacts. Space exploration during this period had tremendous cultural resonance, inspiring a generation with images of astronauts and rockets, and mobilizing education and investment in STEM fields. It became a symbolic front of the Cold War, framing the contest as one of two economic and ideological systems. Conclusion: from competition to cooperation. By the early 1970s, after a series of successful moon landings, the frontier of competition began to give way to cooperation. The 1975 Apollo-Soyuz test project, joint US-Soviet mission involving docking spacecraft in orbit, symbolized the thawing tensions and new possibilities for international collaboration in space. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned for the next video.